Heidi ho there, young mechanics out there today in YouTube land. Bobby here today. Hey folks, I want to make this quick little video today on tools, like tools that you might make yourself over the years. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I've made. You may find a need to take an old wrench and cut it in half from time to time to be able to get into a tight spot. So anytime you do that, save those tools because there's a good chance you're going to use them again. So let's go over here to the workbench and I'm going to show you some of the tools I've made over the years. Okay guys, hey, I went through both my toolboxes and I gathered up some stuff here right quick. I don't know if I've got everything I've made over the years, but we'll just start with this. This ought to be good to kind of explain. As you notice, I have a lot of wrenches here, open end and box end wrenches that I've cut in half for different things. Let's see here. Here's an 18 millimeter. Definitely has come in handy over the years a lot doing like power steering racks in cars. When you got to get up there and get those lines started back on the rack and you need to wrench these things on until you get them tight enough to put your line wrench on. Very handy tool to have. An open end there. See, here's probably the box end that I cut off. Probably didn't use that too much over the years, but you never know when you might need a short box end, so always keep the other end as well. Here's some Allen wrenches that I've cut off. I must have needed them to get into a really tight spot. I see there's two of them here. So that's two Allen wrenches. You may have to cut them from time to time to get into a tight spot. Let's see here. Here's a socket that I actually shaved down. I had to get it make it thinner than it needed to be to get to something. I can't even remember what that was for. Might have been when I was working at Acura. We had to rebuild transmissions. But I think this socket's actually split now because I ended up using it on something else and it got weak and it ended up splitting it, so it's actually no good anymore. Let's see here. Right here, it's a cool little tool. I took a socket, welded it to a wrench, and this here is used for Honda valve adjustments where you can stick a screwdriver down through here and you can break your locking nut loose on your rocker arm, set your valve lash, and then snug it back down. That's a cool little tool that I made over the years. Let's see here. This right here, back when I was building these little hydrogen generator bubblers, I actually made my own pipe tap here out of a pipe nipple, welded a handle on it, cut me some slots in the end of it, and used it to tap plastic. Okay, works just fine for that. And I think this is another thing I was using back during that time too. I took a drill bit and welded a handle on it because all I needed to do, I could actually drill right through that plastic by hand. Had to like make it one size bigger or something. Here is a old crank pulley for a small block Chevrolet that I welded a socket to. So when you're building an engine, you can stick it on the end of the crank and you can put a ratchet on there and turn the engine over as you're installing pistons and so forth. Here's a degree wheel that I made out of a piece of cardboard for degree and camshafts on some old race cars. And it was just a hard piece of cardboard. Sat down with a pencil and a straight edge and I drew out, I made degrees all the way around this thing and put a couple coats of polyurethane on it. I bet that thing's 30 years old. It still works if you need to, need to build an engine and degree a camshaft. What else do we have here? An old input shaft out of a Saginaw transmission. Well, if you get one that you're tearing apart, hang on to that because that's actually a clutch lineup tool. If you ever have to put a clutch in one, that's the perfect clutch lineup tool right there. Right here we have a couple valve lifters with a head bolt driven down into them and Loctited, and then these ends here are machined on a valve grinder, nice and flat, and you can use these to when degreeing a camshaft. You put this down in the bore and you set your dial indicator up on top here and you can take your reading on your intake lobe. Okay, I think I have one here for a small block Chevrolet and one for a small block Chrysler because I used to have a Chrysler race car. Okay, what else do we have here? Here's a I made this recently. I actually made a video on it. Needed something to get an inverted hex and on a Volkswagen to get a axle nut out with, and I welded this together with a lug nut on the end where I can stick my impact socket on there and zip that bolt out. So I made that. Here's a little pipe bender that I made for a certain size pipe. It was just an old pulley, and welded a couple pieces of angle on here, and this here clamped in the vise, and I could stick a piece of pipe in there and put the bend on it that I needed. And I guess that's just about it, guys. Probably the most interesting tool here that I've made over the years. Oh, here's one. This was from a Harley Davidson to adjust the clutch. An old wrench welded to a socket, break the nut loose, stick an Allen through the middle to set the correct lash on the clutch, and you can snug it back down. This here is probably the most interesting tool that I made. I was working at Saturn, and when I worked there, they had on the manual transmissions, the input shaft seal, they called it a quill bearing, okay? And they would leak on these things and leak oil. You'd think it was the rear main seal leaking, but it was actually the front seal of the transmission, or the quill bearing, okay? And the proper process to fix that was to take the transmission out of the car, disassemble the transmission to where you take the case apart, and drive that quill bearing out of that case, okay? And I saw another tech do one, and after I saw what the part looked like, I thought to myself, you know what? I bet you I could rig up something where I could actually slide it over that, the part where the throwout bearing rides on that quill bearing, tack weld it, hook my slide hammer up to it, and jerk that sucker out of there. Because we already had the tools to install the new one there at the dealership. You just stick it on there and drive it in with a hammer. So the day that I got one of those jobs to do, because it paid like 11 hours to do it, okay? 11 or 12 hours, and that was warranty time. So I decided that I would make my own. I actually took a lunch break, drove home, got my welder, got a couple pieces of pipe, come back, welded up this little tool right quick, took that transmission out just far enough to tilt it straight down, okay? And I had it up on the lift, and I stuck this up there, welded it to the quill bearing, and had it up about this angle here, hooked my slide hammer up to it, jerked that sucker out, drove that new one in, never took that transmission even out of that car. Just slid it back, tilted it down, used my tool here, used the slide hammer to jerk that sucker out, drove the new one in, put that transmission back together. I think I had that whole job done in about 3.5, 4 hours. Got paid over 11 hours for it. Anyway, friends, that's some tools right there that you may find yourself making over the years, and you'll do it. If you stay in this business long enough, you'll end up cutting a wrench in half or something to do something with. Here's another one here. This is just a 12 millimeter. Looks like I shaved down on the outside of it here because I had something I had to get into to where the factory wrench was too thick to get around it, and I had to do that to get it in. I can't even remember what the heck I used that on. Probably only used it one time. But if you only use it one time, guys, sometimes it'll pay to sacrifice a tool just to be able to get the job done in a timely manner. Well, young guys, I hope this video was helpful to you, and we're going to continue this series. And y'all have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. We'll see you next time. Take care.